Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Angie. If you don't know me, welcome. So for today, we're also going to be doing another movie I watched. If you saw this video right here, you know that I reacted to the first episode of The 100. Well, today guys, today I spent my weekend watching it and knowing every single thing that is happening so that I can come and tell you guys what goes on. Are you ready? Are you excited? Well, let's get right into it. On to the first season. So, the series starts off with the earth being inhabitable for 99 years. So, the people who had been living have been living on borrowed air and borrowed oxygen, just a little less. They have been regulating the food that they're eating. They're giving them only rations and things like that. So where they live, they call it the ark, where they live in a spaceship up in space. And in the ark, every crime that is committed is punishable by floating them. They can't afford to have anybody who jeopardizes their life or their safety. So anybody who does something that is against the law is floated and killed. If you're over 18 years, you're killed. But if you're under 18, you're kept in a prison box in a jail where you wait your review. So this girl Clark, she's in her prison cell and she's drawing. She's the main character, she's the protagonist. She's in her cell, she's drawing. Prison guards come to her cell. She's scared because she's reaching 18 in a month and she doesn't want to be floated. So she basically says, it's not my time yet. The prisoners who had been kept in the prison were 100. So the 100 of them were being sent to the ground because it was seen that after 99 years of study that the ground was now, there was a part of the ground that showed green, that showed that it was survivable. These people who were from the jail were the ones who were considered suspendable. They were given wristbands and put on their arms and were forcefully put to go back to the ground so that they can test if the earth was survivable. If it was, the others were going to come back to the ground. Clark is part of the people who are being sent to the ground. She has her best friend, Wells. Wells was the son of Jaha. Jaha was the head of the ark. So Wells had not committed any crime, but he got himself arrested by doing something so that he can come to the ground with Clark because Clark is his best friend. Clark was angry at Wells for some reason, saying that he was the cause of the death of her father. So she kind of had a grudge on Wells. So when they were kept in the dropship, we see two characters, Bellamy and Octavia. Bellamy and Octavia are siblings. In the ark, it was a rule that a person should not have more than one child. So since this child was illegal to have in the first place, the mother kept Octavia hidden in a place under the floor, whereby every time that they will come to search the houses, she will be hidden under the floor. She went like that for 16 years until one day she decided to attend a party that Bellamy was having a shift as one of the prison guards for. But since there was a random checkup, she was caught. And since the mother was found to have done that, she was floated and she was killed. And then Octavia went to be captured in the prison. So when they were sending 100 to the ground, Octavia was part of the people who were in the ground. However, Bellamy went to the ground to protect his sister Octavia. So what he did was he was told to shoot the chancellor, who is Wells' father, Jaha. He was told to shoot him, and by shooting him, he would acquire a spot in the people who were going to be sent by the dropship down to the ground. So for Bellamy, that was a good bargain because he will get to protect his sister, and if they were supposed to die, he will die anyway. He literally had nothing else to live for. So he got his chance and went to the ground. And when they reached there, Clark had that they were told when they reached they should go and look for food and supplies in Mount Weather. So Clark opened the map to see where Mount Weather was, but she found that there was a radiation-soaked forest between them. So she starts looking for a way to find food. And meanwhile, when they arrive on the ground, all the communication systems that were put for them to communicate with people in the ark to tell them that it was okay went down, were not possible, like they got destroyed. So Clark's mother is a surgeon. Her name is Abby. Abby loves her daughter so much. She's part of the council there in the ark. She's one of the people who determines what happens. So she's the one who came up with the idea to give them the wristbands, which will submit their vitals and know that if people were living or not. So since Bellamy, when he reached on the ground, he knew he became wanted because he thought he had killed the chancellor. He started making people take off their wristbands. So people started taking off their wristbands and people were being forced to. So they started thinking that people were dying, which they eventually come to learn that they were not. On their way to Mount Weather, they crossed a river. When they crossed a river, there were a group of people who went. Octavia personally went because she was feeling rebellious, and since she said she had been locked up all her life one way or the other, she felt like she needed to go with the team. So she joined them and they went. And when they reached there, they crossed a river where one of them was killed, Jasper. But he wasn't killed, they just thought he was. So one of them was shot and they knew that they were not alone on the ground. So they knew there were grounders there. When they arrived, they had no rules. Bellamy, who was Octavia's brother, who was trying to get people to remove their wristbands, kept telling people that they were going to live with whatever rules they want, like they do whatever they want. But since they learned that they are not alone, they started making shelter, they started trying to protect themselves. This was until Octavia went on wandering and was captured by a grounder. She went missing. Bellamy went crazy looking for the sister. He looked for the sister. He looked for the sister. Meanwhile, there were other problems that occurred here in the middle. There was a guy named Murphy, John Murphy, and he had a group of boys who they used to bully people and do things like that. So Murphy was one of the bad characters. He was one of the people who forced people to remove their wristbands, and he was such a criminal who later on gets banished because he compromises the security of the shelter that they were in. So he gets banished and he goes off and he's sent off to go outside. When Clark arrives, when they start making shelter, Clark kind of falls in love with this guy Finn. So Finn is this the guy who is depicted to be the bad boy, to be wearing the jackets, to be cool. So she starts falling in love with him. Then there's a lady called Raven. Raven is one of the youngest engineers in the ark. So apparently Finn and Raven were dating. But Finn was in prison because for Raven's 18th birthday, Raven always wanted to travel in space. So he gave Raven the opportunity to travel in space. And when they were caught because they were using excess oxygen, he took the blame and lied that he was the one who went out to space because he was 17. He knew that Raven would get floated. So instead, he decided to lie that it was him instead. So Raven comes back to the ground. By this time, Clark and Finn are dating. So you can imagine the fiasco that is over there. When Raven comes back, she's still in love with Finn. Finn is so much into Clark. Clark likes Finn. But when Raven comes, Clark tries to excuse herself. And then they come. Octavia is still missing through this. So they went and looked for Octavia. When they look for Octavia, they find that they return her and they capture the grounder who took her. So apparently the grounder is known as Lincoln, but he had been protecting Octavia. They just didn't know this yet. So Lincoln comes and he really likes Octavia. So at one point he's captured. Bellamy tortures him, but Octavia helps him escape. This was until the grounders now started having problems with Clark and the team. So Clark decides that she's going to go after Jasper because they were not sure if he was dead or not. And this, in the process, she gets involved with one of the grounders and it becomes a war. They start arguing. So now they feel like they're short of resources. So now they start looking for a way to contact the Ark and tell them it's survivable because most of their weapons, their leaders, most of them are in the Ark, so they can't do things alone. So they try to communicate with them. Raven, who is the engineer, and Monty try to come up with a way together to contact the Ark. The people from the Ark try to come down to the ground, but they're betrayed by a group of people. But eventually they do come back to the ground, leaving Jaha alone up there because they needed somebody who could push the button manually and will remain up there. So the others come, Abby, and there's this guy called Ken. So Ken is one of the leaders of the council. He's such a morally upright person. There was a time they needed to sacrifice people for air. He was the one who did it, but he's considered such a bad character at the beginning and Abby a good one, but he really redeems himself and I feel like he did all those things from a sense of duty. which is not good, but it's not as bad, you know. Now they start planning to come back to the ground, but by the time they arrive at the ground, they find that Clark and her team had been taken by the mountain men. The people from Mount Weather come to the shelter of Clark's place, take some gas them out, and they sleep, and they're carried and they're taken to Mount Weather. So when these ones come back to the ground, only a few people are there, who are Bellamy and Finn, and yeah, those are the only people who are remaining. On to season 2. So Clark is captured among the people who were taken to Mount Weather. So she wakes up, she's in this white room, she's only in clothes like look like she's from the hospital. So she's released and she finds all the other people they were 47 actually who were captured. All the 47 of the 100 were there. They were enjoying life. They were among people who were so civilized. The people in Mount Weather were so civilized. They were wearing coats, they were reading books, they were eating good food, which seemed like it was too good to be true, you know. So one of the people there, one of the main characters, Jasper, they got to find him in season 1. So here in season 2, he comes and falls in love with a girl called Maya. So Maya comes to help them big time. They live there for a while until they find out the people from Mount Weather can't exist on the ground. So what do? They have been taking for years grounders and taking their bone marrow and using it to generate their own blood, but it hasn't been working. It's been working for them for only a few hours before again they start dying. So the reason they kept Clark here is because they wanted to the only reason they took Clark here is because they wanted to take their bone marrows, because considering they had been up in space and were raised in the ark, they were closer to the sun most of their lives, meaning they had enough radiation for most of their lives, which made them stronger, and their blood could enable the people from Mount Weather to live on the ground. But then the people in Mount Weather were too many. There were only 47 and people were being killed in the process. The person who is in charge of Mount Weather was an old man who is very good but has a son called Cage. Cage was the antagonist of this season. Since he never cared about the 100. The father cared about the 100 and kept telling Cage that it's not good, we shouldn't do this to people. We shouldn't sacrifice our souls or our humanity so that we get to the ground. Because if we do, we don't deserve to be in the ground. But Cage and they had a doctor friend. So him and the doctor were like, we have to live on the ground. It's our right. We want to do this. So they start taking people forcefully. So the people from Mount Weather also had people called reapers, who they took actual grounders, people who lived on the ground, and made some experiments with them and injected blood on them and injected things on them, making them very, very dangerous and making them only listen to them. So in the process, Lincoln is captured and he's made a reaper. Octavia feels really, really bad. In the second season, Octavia grows. She learns about the culture of the grounders and tries to make the grounders accept her. So from Lincoln's tribe was a woman called Indra. Indra is one of the soldiers of the grounders. So Indra starts training her, and after Lincoln is captured, Octavia strives to go and get Lincoln, because Lincoln taught her their language, taught her their beliefs, their cultures, and since she's in love with Lincoln, she goes and searches for him. In the process, Clark tries to find a way for them to escape, until when she finds one of the grounders and they escape together, only for the grounder to be killed. Meanwhile, in the ground, Abby and Marcus are the one who are leading. Marcus Kane, they're the ones who are leading people since Jaha is not there. So Abby Kane goes to discuss with the grounders a way, since both of their people were captured, he goes to discuss a way for them to be able to form an alliance so that they can go take their people from Mount Weather. And Abby, meanwhile, remains as head of the ark. When he goes to find the alliance is formed, and then the grounders start training. They start being told to know how to use guns, and Octavia is really eager to learn how to fight like the grounders and become a warrior. You know, she's in that process in her life. Lincoln, meanwhile, before he becomes a reaper, he's struggling with his identity as a grounder. He starts wearing the uniforms of the people from the ark, and this causes a strain between his relationship with Octavia. The alliance is made, and Clark after she escapes, forms an alliance with the leader of the Grounders known as Lexa, who is known as their header, as in their ruler. So when they make this alliance, Lexa comes and betrays Clark in that she makes a deal with the people of Mount Weather. So when the Grounders are released, the people from the Ark are not. So they are left for them to continue doing sacrifices. The reason they had made an alliance with them was because the Grounders were many. They had 12 clans, for crying out loud. So the numbers were many. So when Mount Weather learned that they are coming to march to them and kill them, they knew that they were going to be outnumbered. So they secretly made an alliance with Lexa and they backed down. And the people who were left there going to march, all of them were taken and all of them started undergoing these experiments. Meanwhile, Jaha gets away to come back to the ground, and he comes and finds John Murphy, who comes back to the 100 one way or the other. But then he goes with Jaha to look for the city of light. Jaha learns about the city of light and learns about a world where there is no pain. So he starts looking for it, and he tries to recruit people to go with him, but they don't. So instead, he goes with people who had nothing to lose, like John Murphy. Also, in the first season, Raven got shot. So this season she's struggling with her leg, trying to find a way to walk, trying to find a way to move. Bellamy and Finn are trying to search for Clark. Meanwhile, then Finn killed an entire Grounder village, and then Finn was killed off from the series, which was very sad. Also, Maya comes and starts helping the 100 who are inside Mount Weather, came and knew how dangerous that place was. Maya was an insider inside Mount Weather, and her and some of the people didn't believe in what the people were doing in order to stay alive. So she helped the 100 be able to gain access to different areas and helped them, but then she also eventually dies. When they start looking for a way to rescue their people, Bellamy is sent as an inside man. He wears the guard's uniform and he helps them big time. And when he comes to rescue them, the people of Mount Weather keep themselves sealed off in a mountain. So this prevents any air, any radiation from entering there. So eventually the season ends with Clark and Bellamy opening the door. Mainly Clark opening the door for Mount Weather, causing a multitude of people to die. All the people in Mount Weather died, Maya included. And she takes responsibility for that. She takes full responsibility up until she decides to go back to the camp and she decides to leave. So she leaves the camp and goes as an individual to go find herself. So that is the end of season 2. On to season 3. The beginning of season 3, Clark has gone rogue. She has gone as an individual. So the Grounders are calling her One Header, the commander of death. After finding the city of light, Jaha starts coming up with chips. So they find an AI called Ali. He starts coming up with chips whereby these chips make them forget the pain, make them not feel pain. But in exchange, they get controlled by this Ali. Anyway, meanwhile, they get a new leader, Pike. Pike used to be the teacher for the people on the ground. When it was learned that there were people who were going to go to the ground, Pike was considered the person who was going to teach them earth skills, the person who was going to tell them what was going to happen, how they were going to survive, how they were going to make fire, how they were going to hunt. So he became the leader of the people of the Ark. But Pike was ruthless. He was very ruthless in that he didn't like the Grounders at all. Clark had made an alliance with Lexa to become part of the 13th clan of the 12 clans that the Grounders had. But Pike kept destroying everything. They were kept an army to lead the Grounders, and Pike managed to convince Bellamy to help him kill off the army, which really caused a rift between them and the Grounders. But Clark talked Lexa out of it, considering they had started dating. So she told Lexa that she should not be part of a world where the people, that blood should answer blood. It should be that sometimes there should be mercy among the Grounders. So in this deep regard and hate for the Grounders, Pike ends up killing Lincoln. This devastates Octavia. She becomes such a ruthless person, such a ruthless warrior. This thing, the AI spreads fast. It even captures Raven, but Raven manages to break free. Raven being Raven because she was strong. But then it spreads fast. It spreads so fast that they had to look for a person who could help them counter check what had been happening. Lexa also happens to die in this season, which was very devastating. She was a character who became to be loved by the fans, but she died. So by the time all this was spreading, the Grounders already had another leader, a Nightblood. So the Grounders chose their leaders by people who had blood that was black, but there were only limited people who had black blood among the Grounders. So the lady who was chosen to be part of that had tricked her way into becoming the commander, in that she lied that she had the flame, something that when you become commander, you're given a flame, a chip that is this size, that was the same as the one Jaha was giving people. The difference being that the flame was passed down through the commanders of the Grounders, in that every spirit of the commander before that was in the flame, and it was used to guide them. So as much as the flame was an AI, it was the second AI, the AI that was good, the AI that could guide people well. The person who was the leader of the Grounders at the moment had been lying her way into being the leader. John Murphy had been the one who had been telling her how to lie in order to become the leader. But by the time she was becoming the leader, the AI had spread to almost every single person, which was bad. Like, it was so bad that people were even killing themselves. People were willing to kill themselves. This was up until Abby created a cure. Not created a cure, but they found a way to get rid of the AI. But they needed the person who could tell them how to get rid of the AI was the second Ali, the person who had the flame. So they needed a Nightblood whom they could keep the AI into, who was not affected. So they went on for a search for a person who was the other Nightblood. So the thing is, in Grounder knowledge, there are only a few people with Nightblood. There were only 9 at the moment Lexa was chosen. But for Lexa to become ruler, she had to kill every other Nightblood except one that ran away, Luna. So they go on for the search of Luna and tell her to take the flame. They went out for the search of Luna and they found Luna, but Luna said that she left that life a long time ago, because among the people who were fighting for the flame that moment to become the ruler, her brother was one of them, and she had to kill her brother for her to become the ruler. So you see how this was something she never wanted. She went and started a place where they didn't believe in violence, but little did she know that the AI would eventually reach to where she was. So eventually Clark, with the blood that her mother created, made Clark a Nightblood temporarily by using a transfusion from a person with black blood, and she was able to enter the City of Light, where she gained information from the second AI, and she learned how to defeat the first AI. This is where she learned that the world was going to end in 3 months, causing the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4. So at the beginning of season 4, they got rid of the person who was posing as the commander and kept another commander, a man known as Rowan. Rowan was a very good man. He was great friends with Clark, and his mother was queen of the Ice Nation. But then she was killed by Lexa, making him prince of the Ice Nation, making him the next commander, only that he didn't have Nightblood. So he had the flame destroyed so that nobody could threaten his throne. But he was very good friends with Clark. So the reason the people started blaming, the Grounders, every clan started blaming the people of the Ark, because they were said to be the ones who brought the AI to the ground. Since Clark and Rowan were friends, she found a way to counter that by being the friend and negotiating and telling them that telling the king that in 3 months the world was going to end, and the only way they could find help was from Clark and the team. So Abby and Clark start experiments to make Nightblood for more people. Meanwhile, Raven tries to find a way for them to find shelter. So since they were using the Ark on the ground, the people who came to the ground, Abby the second time, they came with the whole Ark down to the ground. So Raven knew that if she purchased some places with Monty and made it a very survivable place, it will be able to survive for the next 5 years. They will just need to look for food and water to survive them the years. So in the process, Rowan comes and learns that they were planning to double cross them, and it becomes a war. Then Jaha learns about the existence of another bunker, but the bunker could only capture 1,000. Rowan's leadership is people are retaliating. There are 12 clans. Among them, Lexa was from a clan known as Tree Crew. So the clan that is leading right now is Asgeda through Rowan. So people are complaining that they can't be ruled by a commander who doesn't have the flame. So meanwhile, as Rowan is trying to fight for his throne, they decide to hold a conclave whereby each clan will have one person to represent them and fight, and the person who would win, the clan should take the bunker. Luna comes and joins, and Luna is a night blood, meaning she will survive the end of the earth. People come and learn about the end of the earth, and they start now saying that they want to live there. So when people learn that people from the ark were trying to hide themselves from the ark, they burnt the ark down, and the ark was not now a place people could survive. So their only hope now was the bunker, where the bunker now started having competition. So when they had the conclave of the 13 clans to decide which clan was going to have it, everybody joined. Octavia was the one who represented the people of the ark, but she came and won the conclave. When she won, she decided that only 100 from each clan would win. So after deciding that, she comes and finds that Jaha already transported all 500 people from the ark and locked it from inside, so there was no way to survive. But then, when Bellamy is kidnapped and put in the bunker, when he wakes up and finds his sister is not there, he opens the bunker. He finds a way to open the bunker, and when Octavia enters, people are sacrificed, and only 100 from each clan are into the bunker. Rowan also had a assistant known as Echo. Echo was the most loyal. If loyalty had no bounds, she had amazing loyalty for Rowan, but she tried to help Rowan cheat without Rowan's knowledge, so she was banished. And during the time that people were going to the bunker, she was not allowed to enter into the bunker. So instead, Bellamy and Raven, they tried to find another way to go. Bellamy, Raven, and Murphy. So Murphy, by the way, comes and gets this other love interest known as Emory. On the way to the City of Light, he went with Emory. So by this time, Murphy is trying everything. He's so in love with Emory, so he's trying to find a way for both of them to survive. So him, Raven, and Echo eventually comes and joins them so that they can go to space instead of going to the bunker. But then they needed somebody to manually open it, then go back into the bunker. So Clark goes, she volunteers to go, but then she doesn't get enough time to go, not to the bunker, to go to the rocket that was going to ship them to space. They were supposed to stay in the remaining part of the ark, the remaining part that was box-like, so that they could live there for the rest of the 5 years. So she wasn't, because there was no time to get back to the bunker. So they needed somebody to manually launch it, and Clark volunteered, and when she pressed it, she had no time to go back, so she was left. And surprisingly, all the experiments that had worked between Clark and Abby worked, because Clark acquired night blood and she was able to survive the radiation. The bunker is closed. Octavia becomes the queen. Bellamy, Echo, Raven, Murphy, Emory all go to space. It's the end of the 4th season. Now we go on to the 5th season. Season 5. So in season 5, there is the introduction of the Elijah's 4 prisoners. One of the head of the prisoners being known as Dioza, a lady who was the most wanted terrorist during the end of the world. Was a part of the ground that was green, so they landed their ship into the green part, and they started living there. Clark somehow survived with another night blood who had just been born, a child known as Maddie. So she adopts Maddie, and they start surviving together. Basically, Octavia becomes a queen. She becomes so ruthless. She starts killing. At one point, she makes people eat each other. Imagine. And people were so loyal to her, and they trusted her so much, and she forced people to obey her, essentially. And she became the leader, and people respected her. And when Bellamy came down, she found Octavia had become such a bad person, in that she actually just wanted to go fight. Kane wasn't a fan of how things were being done by Octavia, so he went and tried to negotiate with the people of Elijah's, and they decided to split half the valley. The place was Shallow Valley, and it was only the place that was green, so they had decided to split half of the valley, but Octavia didn't want to split. She wanted the full thing. She just wanted war. So Monty came up with an idea to say that the people should start should start planting their own things so that they can eat and don't have to go to Shallow Valley. But Octavia destroyed the food that was being planted. She destroyed it and she didn't care. But she comes and becomes morally good eventually. Bellamy also tries to talk to the sister, tries to unite the Elijahs and them. Meanwhile, Abby was devastated by the loss of her daughter, thinking they didn't know that there were people who were able to go up. So she started taking drugs. So Abby starts battling with her addiction. So Octavia starts a war, and in the war the village is destroyed. But eventually Monty and Harper Harper being Monty's girlfriend or hookup or whatever, they get together and they find a new planet, and that's the end of season 5. Welcome to season 6. So in season 6, they discover a planet known as Sanctum, where it is led by the Primes. The Primes are believed to be the leaders of Sanctum, but they have the AI that the commanders used to use, only that they used them badly. They kept their spirit there and they used it on Nightbloods and kept themselves living for centuries and centuries. So the doctor who discovered them was a doctor known as Gabriel, but Gabriel reached a point where he didn't believe that was right, so he started a revolution against it. Octavia starts learning the consequences of what she's done, and she starts finding peace and learning what she did was bad. And in the process, she becomes the friend of Diosa, who was found out to be pregnant, and together go to a place known as the Anomaly, where they raise Diosa's child together. There's a lady known as Josephine who was one of the Primes, who comes and takes over Clark's body for some time, but Clark is able to fight her off. Maddie, who was Clark's adopted child, who was a Nightblood, eventually was given the flame, and she started having all the spirits of the commander until she's taken over by a commander known as the Dark Commander, known as Shadeheader, who causes some mayhem and havoc for a while. The people of Sanctum didn't know what the Primes are doing to them, but they eventually come and learn and try to protect themselves. And eventually the Primes fall and people stop obeying them. Also, Monty and Harper, by discovering this new place, they lived out the rest of their lives, and they even got a son, but then they used cryogenics to keep the rest of them frozen. So Monty and Harper live out the rest of their lives and get their kid, and yeah. Raven, as usual, keeps on helping the people. She was one of the people who helped defeat the Elijahs 4. John, obviously, a morally grey character, tries to make himself and Emori immortal by trying to do that, but eventually learns that was not a good thing to do. Also, they learn a way to protect themselves, and the Primes fall, but in the process, Abby and Kane die because the Primes overtake their bodies. They do realize the Primes are bad because of Monty and Harper's son Jordan. When they reach Sanctum, he falls in love with one of the ladies there. But then they think that the people used to think that by them being given the AIs, they were being given another life and becoming royal and becoming pure. But they come and realize that was just a trick from them to be able to, their bodies to be able to be taken over. And this end of the 7th season ends with Octavia and Diosa going to the Anomaly, and the Primes falling, and the rest of the cast remaining in Sanctum. Now to the final season 7. Now, season 7 was crazy. It was, I don't even think I understood half of what was happening there. Like, they went completely out of topic, where they started talking about shepherds, about a person who they were waiting from transcendence from the gods, where there was going to be collective consciousness, where people will just not die and just exist forever. Then Clark was chosen to do the challenge for humanity, but then she failed by killing people. But instead, Raven talked to the person into giving them a second chance. Then eventually Octavia stopped the war, then people had peace, and then people transcended, except the main characters, of course, they remained for Clark, which I don't know why they will do that, because Clark killed Bellamy, because Bellamy became one of the shepherds, but he was doing it good. He was doing it for a good cause, but he was killed. And I hated that Clark killed him for no reason, because the shepherds needed a person who knew how to reach there, and the person who would help them was Maddie, because she had the flame in her head. So in order to protect Maddie, she killed Bellamy, but in the end it was not the right thing to do, because eventually that's where they all went. So there was no effing reason why they had to do that in the first place. Oh, Diosa dies. Hope and Jordan start dating. Octavia develops a love interest. Raven in the 6th season had a love interest but then died. He was part of the Eligious, but he was a good guy who was against them and who was but he was a good guy who was against them and who was helping them, but then he died. So yeah, Shadeheader tries to cause some havoc in season 7, also trying to incite people to fight. Echo, by the way, becomes a very good character. She becomes a dodge. She dated Bellamy for a while, but she gets to live her life without him and get to learn herself better after the death, and was one of the people who remained with Clark. John and Emory, obviously. There was a part where she almost died in the 7th season, but survived. So that is the end of the 7th season. That was the end of the 100. If you reached this part of the video, kindly subscribe and like and share and comment what you think I should do next. All suggestions are appreciated. Till next time, bye.